If you're a pastor or elder, the gospel growth process provides a very useful way of thinking about your congregation. Let me give you 4 examples. Firstly, it helps you think about each individual person in your congregation, or even those not yet in your church. Secondly, it's a way of assessing where your whole congregation is up to, at a group level. Thirdly, at the level of a planning tool for your whole program. And fourthly, as a framework for thinking about the training of new leaders and elders. Now, I won't spend much time talking about the individual level, we've done that already in part 3 of this presentation, except to say that it's very easy for church leaders to stop thinking about each individual person and just start working at the level of large groups, structures, events and activities. We so easily lose sight of the growth of each individual person in our care and get entirely caught up in running all the activities and administration and committees of church life. But gospel growth is about the progress that each person makes. It's the fruitfulness that the gospel brings forth in every person's life. Some pastors use the gospel growth framework to think and pray about each person in their care, where they are up to in gospel growth and what they each need next. But the gospel growth framework also helps you to stand back and assess where your congregation as a whole is up to. For example, perhaps most of your congregation are relatively stable Christians who would benefit from being in a home Bible study group that studies the scriptures together and does some training in key skills. They are at that growth and training stage, but maybe you're a bit short of competent home group leaders. In other words, you could run more small groups than you have leaders for, and so you need to gather 4 or 5 solid Christians and take them through a training course in how to lead a small group. Now, Matthias Media has a very highly regarded training resource for just this purpose. It's called Growth Groups by Cole Marshall. Take a group of people through growth groups and then set them to it. Or perhaps you sense that as a whole, your congregation members are a bit inward focused and need to be challenged to think about how they can look outward and share the gospel with non-Christians. Perhaps they need to be trained so that they have a little bit of confidence in doing so, at least to the point that they aren't terrified about doing it for fear of completely mucking it up. Again, the way forward is to start with half a dozen people and get hold of a training course like 6 Steps to Talking About Jesus. It's simple and does just what the title says. It gives the average person some simple steps forward in being motivated and knowledgeable and equipped to talk to their friends about Jesus. Train 4 or 6 or 10, and once they are fired up and have some runs on the board, you can get them to help you train others. It's not just about training, but training the trainers who can help you equip others. Thirdly, you can use the gospel growth process as an assessment tool for your church program. Think about all the activities in your church. Better than that, write them down in a list. And now across the top of the page, write the words outreach, follow-up, growth, and training. So now you have 5 columns. The first has the name of the activity, and then 4 columns, 1 for each of those categories you've written across the top. Now run down the list and quickly put a tick in the category column that you think that activity most relates to. Here are some examples. Now have a look at your list of ticks. Does the balance look right? If your church is like most churches, you'll probably find you have many more ticks in the growth column than in the other 3. Perhaps that's an indication that you need to put some thought into activities that relate more to outreach and to follow-up and to training. Finally, let's think about recruiting and training new leaders and elders in your congregation. What would you be wanting those people to be like and to be able to do in Christian ministry? Well, naturally, godliness is at the core of the answer of what they should be like, showing love and care, demonstrating a sound knowledge of the faith and a firm trust in God, exercising self-control and discipline. And what sort of ministries would you hope that an elder or leader should be able to exercise? Perhaps things like this: to be able to pray privately and leading in prayer publicly, to read the Bible regularly for themselves, to be able to encourage others with the Word of God, perhaps teaching the Bible in a small group or even preaching occasionally, to be able to explain the gospel to non-Christians and lead them to Christ, to be able to follow up a new Christian and establish them in the basics of the faith, and to be able to disciple and train others in the church in all of the above. If those are the kinds of things you'd like your elders to do, or if those are some of the things you'd like to learn to do yourself, then there are plenty of resources available. Matthias Media offers help with all of these things, and I've mentioned most of them in other parts of this presentation. If you'd like to know more, there's a sample curriculum for elders that you can download from our website, matthiasmedia.com. As I conclude this section of the presentation, let me remind you of one of the great dangers of ministry, both for us as a Christian publisher and for you as a pastor or leader in your church. The danger is this, that we begin to focus on programs rather than people. That's completely upside down. Ministry is about people, not programs. We need to start with the people we have, each person that God has put in front of us to love and to serve, and work hard to see how each of these people can grow in the gospel. Rather than starting with the latest best-selling program and pushing people through it in the hope of growing your church in the same way other churches seem to have grown who've adopted that program. If your heart and passion is for growing people, not running programs, then Matthias Media is the publisher you've been looking for.